Hello, BookTube. Welcome back to AusBooks, and it's just me talking about random Australian books I own. And we have a very interesting choice here today because we're officially out of the 1700s. Finally, we are done. Who knows? There could be some ones that got left behind that I still want to talk about, but yeah, don't worry about those. And we're talking about one of the most important figures of the 1800s when it comes to Australia, and that is Charles Wentworth himself. Specifically, the book, if we had to tie him to one book, it is, I got it here, a statistical account of the British settlements in Australia. Or that's like the shortened title. It has a very long title that you can't even fit on the page. And that is the least interesting thing Charles Wentworth done. We'll get to it soon, but I want to give you a quick snapshot of his life because he lived one of the most crazy lives to this point in Australian history, and you need to know it pretty much. I think it's really fun. So he was born in 1790, right? But he was born on a ship. He was born on the HMS Surprise. His mum was a convict, and his dad was an assistant surgeon, but also was a highwayman robber. But when it came to either serving prison time or being sent to Australia and filling out a role, he chose that, and he worked as an assistant surgeon on the ships. And they fell in love, of course, and had a kid. They had him on the ship. Shows you how long the travel was to get to Australia from England. And yeah, he also had a younger brother, and they lived in Sydney. Charles's mum died when he was 10, but his dad's family was very rich and wealthy, and he wasn't thrown away as the bastard son or whatever. So he got to have that advantage. He spent his young years in Sydney, moved to England to study as a young man, then came back to Australia, and this man was about to do stuff. He was about to shake the ground because he just casually won the first ever horse race held in Australia. Just official, just casually. And then in 1813, he's like, I'm gonna go grab some mates. I forget their names. I've got them here. William Lawson and Gregory Baxland, and they just casually mapped out the Blue Mountains in Sydney. Just casual stuff. And then he's like, well, I've done that. I'm gonna go on a voyage to the South Pacific, and that absolutely went awful, and he nearly died. And then when he returned from that failed voyage that nearly killed him, he decided to invest in the property market of Australia very early on, buying land and all that stuff, and that will come to give him a lot of money later on, which we'll get to. But also, what he's mostly remembered for is going into politics at the time. He was very much focusing on human rights and workers' rights, trial by jury, and really, really, really pushing Australia for federation. He drafted the first, one of the first, constitutions of Australia in the 1820s. Like, this man was so early on. He would never live to see federation. That happened in 1901. He never lived to see it. But this man was pushing for it 80 years before it happened. He was very much, we need to establish ourselves away from England and all that stuff, which is, I think, incredibly interesting, just considering, again, how early on he was onto it. Again, done a lot of stuff when it comes to legislation we'll talk about. Also, just casually invested and created the first independent newspaper that was created for Australia. Just done that too. First opened the first university too. He also done that. I've got my list here. And all that made him very wealthy. And in that time, he also wrote the book we're talking about today. And pretty much the statistical history, whatever the book was, it's got such a long title, is a weird manifesto of sorts he wrote early on in his political life, because it's pretty much a entire book dedicated on why you should come to Australia and live here compared to America. It is really interesting. He talks about the agriculture here, the livestock, the workers' rights. He talks about the landscapes. He talks about everything, the tax people pay here, every tiny minute detail about this country. He writes about, it's better than most other countries. You should come here and live here. And it's very dry at certain times. Like, the topics themselves are so minuscule and so nerdy, and I just absolutely love it. It is so funny to hear him be like, yeah, America does this, but also Australia is going to do this. Like, he was very early on in what he predicted Australia would correctly do. I think he wouldn't have been surprised to see that Australia would be the first country to have a union led political party. I think he wouldn't have. I think he predicted that. He manifested it really, because he did live to see Eureka and all that stuff too. And literally just done so. He's very much a man of first. He done so much. He did eventually retire. He did leave Australia. He retired in England and died all the way in 1872 at the age of 81. And he had a net worth of like £170,000, which I think today would be like $30 million. And this is in 1800s money too. Like, this is a lot. He would also be the first person to have a state funeral in Australia and then a public holiday dedicated to him. Over 65,000 people rocked up to his funeral to pay tribute to him. Like, he was a massive figure in early Australia. And the sad thing is that despite everything, I've been ranting to you about this man's life for a good 6 minutes now. He only has one biography. Like, literally just one, barely 300-page biography by Andrew Tink. It is a really good biography. I will say it's serviceable, but this man has done so much. And just to think he only has like one, accessible biography is absolutely insane. And I just thought I'd point that out to why isn't it not more of him? He kind of has been left behind. I'll get that. Gets that a bit later. But Wentworth also wrote his entire career, his entire life pretty much. He wrote journals about his explorations in the Blue Mountains, which are really interesting. He also wrote poetry, which was good. That's fine. It's what you expect, really. And he also wrote the book we're talking about today too. He's done some other stuff, but that's mostly it. And the one thing you will notice about Wentworth is it's really unavoidable, is the racism here. He was racist to the core in a way that I think I can still look past it, to be honest, because when you read about how great Australia is, especially in the opening to the book we're talking about today, there is very much yes, Australia is great, but the Aboriginals here are the lowest form of human in the world. Like, literally, like the people in Africa are more human than the natives here. Like, it is insane how racist this man was. He petitioned and tried to legislate that Native Australians shouldn't be allowed to enter public spaces or major buildings, just a lot of stuff like that of the time. And he was real racist in a way that I think a lot of other major early Australian figures kind of weren't really. Like, even Arthur Phillip wasn't that bad in a lot of ways. At least him and like William Bradley, at least they tried, where I think Wentworth was just so racist to the core. And you will get that a lot in his writings, but I feel like it's not the be-all and end-all when it comes to his writings. Again, I think the book we're talking about today does such a great snapshot of what early Australia was like. I do really recommend it. It's not that long, but you will have to deal with like the one chapter where he's like, yeah, like we have the lowest form of humans here. Like, that's really it, really. A lot of his travel logs of his journals, of his adventures would have a bit of that too. But again, you can just skim it. Really, it's not that bad. When it comes to just how much it is, it's very much, when it's there, but it's not the entire text. And I think that's important to remember. And I think that's kind of what, especially in the last 150 years, has kind of tanked his the way people remember him. And especially because the Wentworth family, especially in the 50s, would go on to advocate for Indigenous rights. Like, they'd done a lot after him, but Wentworth himself was a man who was racist to the core and never changed that. And so do know that going in, but it's definitely not everything he wrote. It's there, but it's not everything. And yeah, he's a very interesting figure. Again, I would love to see a day there is a massive 500-page biography of him. I think with the sheer amount of documents we have of him, and also his own collected writings, you could do it, I really think. But yeah, that's your weird recommendation for today, Charles Wentworth. I don't know if anyone would ever recommend Wentworth, but I think, again, the book we're talking about today is if you want to see what Australia looked like in the early 1800s, this is probably one of the best ones to go to. It's short, it's directly to the point, and it just shows you that we're better than America in a lot of ways. And again, the stuff he predicted that would happen when it came to workers' rights here, it's just kind of crazy to think about. And yeah, so definitely check out the book we're talking about today. Check out his exploring journals and all that too. They're not the best; they're a bit dry. You do have to deal with his. The more distant you are from Wentworth, the person in his writing, I think it's the better. I would take his poetry more than his travel writings, to be honest. But yeah, that's, I don't know. I just think he's really interesting. I don't even know he's in print anymore, really. But you can find him, public domain and all that stuff. But yeah, definitely check out some Wentworth. He's a very influential figure, man of many firsts, and a genuine titan figure in early Australian history. And yeah, go read him and let me know what you think of it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching BookTube, and I will see you next time.